Well, greetings everyone. It is Monday night, and that means it's time for another segment of To an Imperfect Union. Today is Vietnam Veterans Day, and I wore my first strike, first 50 Deuce, 101st Airborne T-shirt today in honor of comrades fallen. Also in memory of the more than 58,000 missing. So before we start the program, let us bow our head for 10 seconds of silence for those that have served our country and passed on. Thank you very much for sharing those moments. I'm I know there are protests going on right now in Minneapolis, so I'm going to assume that some of our guests may be late. Uh, as you know, we're having Mr. Don Allen. Don has been on the show before, and there are protests going on in Minneapolis as we speak. And also, we're going to have uh, another gentleman, an activist from the Minneapolis area. Uh, Anthony, he's been a activist in that area for quite some time. We're going to speak to him about some of the protests. Over the next 4 weeks or so of this trial, we hope to have someone from the Twin Cities representative on each show. Let me just send Don a message here. Okay. I'm going to post that in there. Okay. Hopefully, Mr. Allen will be joining us soon. But I do hope that many of you got a chance to listen to the opening arguments on both sides. And let's see if I can. Yes, sir. Let's see. He might be in already. Let's see. Sure. As we speak. Um, excuse me. Getting back to what I was saying earlier, um, it does seem that some of the arguments I can already see um, where we once again might not be getting the result as our lion eyes can see. Um, and I refer to the defense with the fentanyl and made to look like Percocets and always referring to it as an overdose, uh, which led to cardiac problems. We've already had conflicting reports as far as the coroner's office when we have an independent study that says that there were broken pieces of vertebrae found within the tissue. You put enough force to dislodge vertebrae to have pieces of vertebrae floating in your body. But this was not excessive force. You had the prosecution saying that there were no reticular hemorrhages of the eyes. And as we know, that also tends to be uh, rather misleading because everybody that's a fan of forensics knows that these things come with reticular hemorrhages and so forth. So once again, we're kind of being led down the primrose path here. Uh, I see Mr. Evans is in the queue. Mr. Allen, how are you doing this evening?
Well, I'm on my iPad and I can't figure the damn thing out. So where's the camera? Oh, there we go, right there. Okay.
Hey,
Yeah, how you doing, sir?
I am doing fine. I was got up early this morning so that I could watch some of the things that were taking place in your city,
Ooh.
and I see the recent things on the TV are showing that there are protests going on in the Twin Cities. Is that still going on? Can you kind of catch us up a little on that?
Yeah, I will. I'm sorry for shaking around here. I have. Never mind. I won't get into that. Anyway, my. You know what? I'm gonna be really honest with you. I follow Malcolm's doctrine on the protesting thing, and there are protests going on downtown, but it's not the kind of protest that you'd see in the 1950s or 60s. It's a whole different kind of stylish kind of thing they have going on. And yes, there are. To answer your question, yes, there's protests going on, and they're wrapped in fancy cornucopias of self indulgent photo ops with Al Sharpton and the rest of them. And I don't know, man. It troubles me because someone here is worried about the outcome of this trial. You know, besides the people protesting, and I'm not sure that Chauvin is going to be found guilty. Tell you the truth.
Well, you graciously had me on your show Saturday, and I
Mm-hmm.
kind of voiced the same concerns. And I'm even more convinced this morning after watching the opening trials, the opening statements.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like you said, I mean, it's definitely not the protest of our era or my era. I don't know if I want to put you, if you want
Yeah,
to
yeah. I'm
lump
only
this.
39. I'm 39, man. 39. Let's
Well,
let's 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 get it right.
well, I'm Bob Hope. I'm
Yeah,
what
yeah. Okay.
41. So
Okay.
but anyway,
Yeah.
it's a far cry from what we've seen as protests. Like you said, it was. Uh, well, this is my show. it was, to me, it was a group of Negroes standing around debating the fate of something that should already be known. I mean, I see no great question here. I mean, what's the question? How much pressure did he put on his neck? Now we know how long it was. We have different conflicts, different autopsies,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, I think somewhere I read this was only the fifth police that has been charged with murder in the last 50 years.
Let me run this down to you. There's never been a police officer in Minnesota found guilty of anything involving a killing of a person until Justine Damon, when Mohammed Noor, the Somali officer, was charged and convicted and jailed. So we still did not get a white police officer. We got someone from out of town, out of the country. Okay. And so we didn't even, and I'm like, oh, wow, that's weird. So all these white cops have shot all these black people throughout the years in Minneapolis and St. Paul. And the first one that gets convicted is a black dude from Somalia. Okay. That's a trip in itself. That's deep right there. Okay. So you got this white officer who is, the law is very particular, especially if the police officer takes this version of this post test and has this training, and the law is meant to protect police officers that use deadly force. Now, it's going to come out into in the trial, the city charter, the Minneapolis City Charter, what they say they can and cannot do. And yeah, he had his foot on his neck for 8.5 minutes approximately, give or take a couple seconds. He was dead probably in 6 minute number 6 or minute number 7. But are there extenuating circumstances that contributed to happen, or that happened prior to this point, that would have put him at risk based on a normal someone, and I shouldn't say normal, someone else who wasn't doing what he was doing and might have survived it? Is that a possibility? So that's something in the law that we have to really look at closely and weigh, and it protects the officer more than the dead person, unfortunately. But yeah, we have a lot of Negroes here with their hands out trying to get money from Carrie Wright and the George Floyd Foundation. And I've talked with Carrie Wright on the phone in North Carolina. She's a sweet soul. She's doing the right thing, and she's very critical and aware of shuckers and jivers, as they used to say back in our day. You know what I mean? Them grifters, them grifters. So she ain't playing that. And but people are sad because we have 27 million plus another 14 million just is going to walk out of Minneapolis when this is said and done. And these guys, these kids are down protesting, man, and they're not asking for a damn thing. Okay, wait, let me take this back. Justice for George Floyd. We want that. Yeah. But you know what? If you're protesting and you're organized, you're talking about economic marker points. And they're not doing that. So this is all for television. So,
Well, did when you look at protests in the past, have we learned anything? Because the only thing that we've ever asked for was justice. Everything else was like, well, we'll talk about it afterwards.
yeah, we'll
There was
smile.
there was never any action. It's like, well, come on, boy, let's go to the table and we'll fix you up a little dinner here and we'll talk while we have a little chat over some fried chicken or whatever it is you people find. Maybe it's black eyed peas right now. I mean, but it seems like we have never been taken seriously after the smoke clears.
Never, not once, barely, not hardly. You're right. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely. I'm sorry, my hands everywhere. It's crazy because how do you fight those psychological boxing gloves and get to a place where the how can I put this? Just I'm trying to be cordial and diplomatic because I know it's a family show. But
No, it's not.
okay,
It's PG-13. Whatever,
okay.
whatever.
Well,
You know.
damn. Okay. But see, how do you get people to understand that historically we're not okay? 25 years ago, I would estimate is when the education system here in the Twin Cities and around the United States changed to a lesser approach to critical thinking or higher order thinking. And when you do that to a cast of people, including the white kids, and you leave out very important historical marker points, and you don't teach them about the pyramids and hieroglyphics and things that are back in emojis in 2021 that were in ancient times in the continent of Africa at the beginning of time, there's a total disconnect. So people don't know what to ask for, and they say, "Oh, I'm humbled to be here." Well, you earned your place to be there. What do you mean? What are you humbled about? And so they've been trained and manipulated. I call it slave dust. They got a lot of slave dust on them. And so you got folks down here protesting. I'm not okay. I'm not really not knocking them. You got to do what you got to do. Whatever makes you feel strong, go ahead, do it. Do it the best you can. If you're gonna be an alcoholic, be the best alcoholic you can be. You know. So you're gonna go down there and protest. Be the best protester. But keep in mind that while you're down there protesting, make sure your background, your house is in order, that your family is not fed, that your kids are okay, that you're doing stuff to make sure that it's for the good and betterment of everybody. And I think that if there was a platform, because say if I was a CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company and my employees were pissed off and they went out and protested, okay, I would fire them all unless they had something documented that said this is what they want. And these protesters, they're shouting justice for George Floyd, but they could be shouting so much more in the Twin Cities. And I don't know, that gap is missing, that education, that knowledge that you have. They don't have that common sense, that discernment. It's scary, man. That's what I have to say.
Well, I once had a young lady accuse me of what her exact words were that my generation had left them ill-equipped to deal with today's problems.
Hmm.
And I asked her what happened to independent study. If you don't feel that I'm giving you the proper tools, then why don't you acquire those tools that you believe that you need on your own, or go to someone else,
Mm-hmm.
or read history, whatever you have to do. Don't just say, well, I stopped going to school at the eighth grade, so therefore I should never pick up a ninth grade book. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I mean, uh, so do you think that we, as our generation has been so ingrained in our own pursuits that we haven't had time to think about the needs of this young generation?
Well, that's a tough question to answer, yes or no. But there has been some. Once the bourgeoisie folks made it the talented tenth, they were supposed to go back and say, okay, come on, middle class. That's why the white people and the black people created the Urban League, the National Urban League. They thought that the Urban League would always function as a conduit between white people and the middle class blacks to make sure that the lower one third of the community was always sustained in a way away from welfare. There,
Wasn't that the purpose of SNCC?
yeah, that was absolutely,
I mean,
absolutely.
I mean, maybe I'm just too old here. I just keep
No, no.
these.
And see, and so what happens is every couple of generations, that generation, like the Harlem Renaissance writers, Hughes, Baldwin, Ellison, all those folks, they couldn't go out and protest, but they could write roadmaps in books and tell us how to navigate 2021 as a black person, as an Asian person, as a Mexican person, as a white person, as a Native American person. And the scholars at those levels that were controlling our education pulled those type of books out, except for like Raisin in the Sun and a couple other little tales here and there. But they really did a number on our psyche by, it's not our generation's fault. Our generation just said we have to survive. We have to make it so that our kids can make it. But while we're out here humping, working, doing what we have to do, you have a you have 10 years of what I call, and I'm not talking about anybody specifically, a lazy class. I'm not saying black people are lazy. I'm not saying, it's an academic term that I use to explain a period where black people were virtually ignored. They let them do exactly what they want to do. They took the black man out of the house, and they told the woman, if you keep them away and you're having these babies, we'll give you $1,000 per kid a month or something like that, and you'll make $88,000 a year. That's more inciting than, and exciting and fun than a couple building wealth together. Like your mom and dad, my mom and dad, people that we knew that or took care of us did, because they were able to take care of us because they knew the steps, and they got some semblance of organizational design and communication into us, be it through a switch, a belt, or a piano cord, or a broom. Okay. And so that's been gone for like 25 years. When that's gone, this is what you get. Screw the pandemic. Let's take the pandemic out of the picture. We're still screwed. Okay? If there's no pandemic, and if it's just us trying to get organized during the George Floyd trial to ask for something other than nothing, and being down there, it's like, who can be in front of the news camera? I don't want to be in front of a news camera talking about something critical because I'm there at a protest. I want to be talking about, hey, I got 50 kids full ride scholarships to the University of Minnesota, the Concordia, or the or HBCU or something. That's camera worthy and protest worthy to me. But we don't see that. We never see the good. We always see this. Oh, we want this. That sets off liberal white people and conservative white people who hold powers and positions in different systems that can block us with the hardest of efforts that don't let us rise. And social media has not helped us at all, because they can go say, Mr. Allen, we want to give you a PhD, but we found out that in 1967 you slapped the hell out of a white girl. If I did or I didn't, but I'm just using that for an example. They'll hold that on you today in 2021, and you're going like, well, I was only 5 years old and we were playing, and I said I'm sorry because she slapped me too. Okay, so that's how petty it is. But that's just, I mean, we could talk about this for hours and hours and hours. Just start at night. Let's just start at 1920 and work our way to 2021, and you can open up cans of worms every decade. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, see, usually I try to get that bullshit out the way
Mm-hmm.
because they already expect certain things out of a black man
Mm-hmm.
anyway. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hit you with that jab right in your face. Okay, yeah, I
Yeah.
come up in the foster system, boom, boom, boom,
Mm-hmm.
boom. But this is what I've accomplished since then, and that was without your help. I did
Mm-hmm.
this, like I said, like I was telling the young lady, sometimes you have to acquire your own knowledge. You had, if those things, I'll give you a good example. Um, Before the three strike law came out, I already had four strikes. My biggest fear in life was dying in prison. So therefore, when I got out of prison, knowing that I already had four strikes, it behooved me to find my ass something else to do.
Right away, immediately.
Okay, you know. So therefore, I became a chef.
Mm.
Now, that served two things. One, I never had to worry about having something to eat. You know,
Mm-hmm.
all I had to do was keep a job.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, And it was something, like, hey, most, black folks figure they can cook anyway. So, give us a book and yeah, we get it made. So, but my point is that, I took those same skills that I had acquired out in the street, that hustle, that ambition, and I put them to use something that would keep me free and affluent, more or less. In other words, I didn't have to go on somebody's welfare rolls. I didn't have to worry about, somebody finding me out, dead
Yeah.
in the street or something like that.
Hmm.
So, how do we impart that sense of, you use the word
No, it's a bad
ambition,
word. Yeah, ambition,
ambition.
rigor.
How,
Yeah,
how do we restore that ambition in our youth when like you say, I mean, the only thing that they see examples of is, Puff Daddy, the basketball wives, you know,
I don't even know what that is, but
well, what I'm saying is, unrealistic role models.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
every kid that starts on his high school basketball team is not going to be in the NBA.
no, no,
you know, so therefore, maybe you learn how to coach.
yeah,
Doesn't mean you have to get out of the sport. Maybe but you learn how to adapt. And like they say in the army, you learn how to adapt to your surroundings.
yeah. They're always
Is
going to
it
need people to carry the towels.
right?
You know.
I mean, hey, but I mean, it's the same way in life. Everybody's not going to be an Al Sharpton, but somebody has to carry a towel.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. Hey, James, I hate to break out of here early, but I have my
Uh,
two boys and they're
okay.
tripping. And if I risk, they're like in the room down the hall. But if I risk staying on here 5 more minutes, all hell's gonna break
I,
loose because my 7 year old
I,
has learned some choice words.
I was a young man myself at one time,
You still
and as
are.
I so, but I want to thank you. I do want to get you back on. I want to stay, with people in your city. I'm going to have Anthony on in a few minutes. So,
Okay.
yeah. Thank you very much for coming on. I do want to talk to you a little more in depth, and I hope to be in touch with you soon.
Well, during the George Floyd trial, here's what I decided to do with my production team. We're just going to send you an invite every Saturday with us in the morning. If you can do it at 9:10 and then go live 9:30, because we want the West Coast flavor and then the Midwest flavor. And then we got bringing someone in from Chicago. And I think we just have this conversation until all the trial is over every Saturday with all of us. How's that sound?
I have no problem with it. I will be
Okay.
there
Yeah.
as many
Well,
Saturdays as I can. You
you'll get
send
to,
me the invite,
I
I'll
will.
be there.
You'll
All
get it.
right.
You'll get it. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you. You have a great night.
You too. Bye bye.
Yeah. Yes, that was Mr. Don Allen. As I said, straight from the Twin Cities. We're going to. I'm going to have one of his colleagues on very shortly here, Mr. Anthony Johnson. Anthony is uh, excuse me, as Mr. Allen was saying earlier, we were all on his show Saturday, and Mr. Johnson is a advocate, been a advocate in a community advocate in the city of Minneapolis for quite some time. He too may be at the protest uh, this evening, but we will see. Uh, let me see if. Uh, Let me send him a quick. then that, and hopefully we'll get Mr. Johnson here in a second. Excuse me, Mr. Scott. I'm sorry. Okay. Um, okay. Uh, okay. Let's see. All right. Okay. As I was saying before, there are protests going on in the city of Minneapolis right now. So I believe I was very surprised that none of this, or very little of this, uh, is actually being covered by Fox News. Fox News is talking to Senator Lindsey Graham right now. It's Hannity, of course, with uh, the usual taking out of Fox News. But as I was saying, I was very underwhelmed by what took place this morning on the prosecution side. Even though they did finish up very strongly so far at the end of the day one. But my point was that they spent a lot of time showing the video, and this was fine because it really exacerbated what happened. But once again, you're only as good as your last memory. And I thought that the defense made sure that they influenced everyone enough or at least they hammered home the fact that it was PCP laced with fentanyl, a speedball, whatever the particular terminology that they were using. It was an upper and a downer, and that as I said, there was no reticular hemorrhages in the eyes, that there was no bruising as far as where he had placed his neck or his foot. And they wanted to make it seem as if it was an overdose. Regardless of what your lying eyes may tell you, there was no knee, according to the autopsy. At least this is his first version of the autopsy. There was no bruising associated Um, okay, so let me. Uh, okay. Uh, Sorry about that. Okay. All right. All right. So hopefully, Mr. Scott will be here soon. So, as I was saying, once again, it's like the black man, placed his body underneath Chauvin's leg and uh, pushed upward with enough force that he happened to asphyxiate himself. Now, according to one autopsy, like as I said, there are pieces of his vertebrae, George Floyd's vertebrae, broken off and found deep within his tissues. And anyone that has been through any amount of physical therapy or things of that nature will know that uh, the neck and back area can take a tremendous amount of pressure before pieces of bone are broken off. What I found very interesting, and I will admit that before today I had never known that, was the response of the 911 operator in the fact. Okay. Uh, Miss Balmier will be here with us shortly, also, and I do want to get her in. Um, Speaking as a mother and an entrepreneur, and I'd like to get her take on some of the things that are happening here. Um, but getting back to the George Floyd trial, the 911 operator said that she thought that something was very, very wrong because, as a matter of fact, she had actually thought that her film had frozen because of the amount of time. 9 minutes, I believe it's now, it went from 8 minutes to 46 seconds. We've, 9 minutes, 30 seconds, another 44 seconds, something like that. But we've now learned that the 911 operator had concern that perhaps there was excessive force. The second young man that whose testimony they closed the trial on today, uh, a mixed martial arts expert. Um, I am trying to find his name, but I do believe that he has been a part of some very, a few very professional shows. So, uh, and he spoke of what he called a blood choke, uh, uh, which basically means that you cut off the flow of blood to the brain, and uh, the results is a lack of oxygen and so forth and so on. Basically, strangling someone with their knee. Uh, as I said, George Floyd miraculously got up that morning and decided that he was going to place himself under Chauvin's knee and remain there until he lost his life. Um, now, right now, he's been charged with second degree murder, third degree murder, and second degree manslaughter. Now, this second degree murder may constitute Sean Hannity is now going through his, you know, uh, and if you have to call someone a racist bigot, I guess you would have to include Lindsey Graham, Sean Hannity, Rush Limbaugh, Lindsey McConnell, Ted Cruz, a few others in there. But anyway, getting back to what we were talking about in Minneapolis, um, I am very afraid, and I stated this in on the show to these particular gentlemen. I am very afraid of what's going to happen when Chauvin is found guilty of the lesser of these two charges. In other words, not guilty of second degree murder, not guilty of third degree murder, but possibly guilty of manslaughter. And what would that mean to the Black community? Now, I'm thinking much like we did the George Floyd, uh, I don't want to say much like we found the gentleman in the Trayvon Martin case. I'm afraid that we're once again going to see another slap on the wrist. Now, you talked about Black Lives Matter. We've seen protests in Detroit. We've seen protests in Louisville and other various parts of the country. And while I don't condemn, while I don't condone burning down your neighborhood, is there something, is there a meaningful protest that Black people can do as a whole that would not shock? We don't want shock and awe. But I've been going on Clubhouse lately, and one of the things that I've learned while listening to some of the people on Clubhouse, and even as I look back upon history, you have to have allies. The French had the Indians, the English had the Indians, the Americans had the Indians. The British had Africans, the Portuguese had Africans, the Spanish had Africans. Asia was divided up into spheres of influence. We were in Vietnam because of our allies, the French. We're going to protect French Indochina. After Dien Bien Phu, we can't let the communists gain hold in Indochina. Somalia, Afghanistan, Iraq, Kuwait. The list goes on and on. You see, but there's a big difference between how we treat our allies and how our allies treat us. And it's happened not only in international, but it's also happened to us as Black people within the United States of America. We have been made promises that have never been kept. We have answered the call to vote. We have been beaten. We have been spit upon. We have been washed down with fire hoses. And no, I'm not talking about a bunch of slaves. I'm talking about people in my generation. I'm talking about people that now are, somewhere in their 70s, 80s, but they have had that Black experience. Now, as I spoke with Mr. Allen, every organization, be it the NAACP, be it SNCC, be it the Urban League, have always sought white liberals. Now, there's a book by Thomas Sowell. I had one of my conservatives ask one of the conservatives that listens to the show had asked me to read the book, and I did. The book was by Thomas Sowell, I believe, Sewell, Sewell. And it had to do with Black liberals, white liberals stop helping us. And the book made some very good points. But like so many other books written by Black conservatives, it also uses the victim mentality. We are descendants of kings and queens. To think of yourself as a victim does disservice to your heritage. We are mighty warriors. But when you choose the wrong allies, or you give your allies too much access, then your allies soon become your rulers. And this is what's happened to us. And it's something that we've let happen to us. And until recently, I think I was part of the problem. Now I'm trying to become a part of the solution. But as long as I was doing all right, as long as my family was doing all right, I didn't care about what happened to your family. As long as my family was able to get in school, as long as my family was able to get a job. Is it a matter of unity? I remember when it was light skin and good hair. Then it was the blacker the berry, the sweeter the juice. But we've got so caught up in trying to win them over and caring about what they think that we seem to have lost ourselves. I spoke of Clubhouse, and I see terms like American descendants of slaves, African Americans. Are Africans the same as Black Americans? And I've run across the same thing in some of my other podcasts when I've had people from Africa on the show. They seem to belittle our struggle because this is America. This is the land of the free. This is the land of opportunity. But once again, I point out, if you are an immigrant coming to America, in many cases, you have more freedom than people that are born here. Now, once again, let's not get it twisted. I'm not moving back to Africa, and I don't think that there's a better country to fulfill my needs than the United States of America. But living here also gives me the right to protest if I don't think things are going right. Now, whose definition of right? Right now, I'm speaking of mine. I'm speaking of my voting rights. I'm speaking of somebody being able to bring me a drink of water if I've been standing in line waiting to cast my vote. I'm thinking of whether or not I should have to drive 100 miles for a drop box uh, to cast my vote when there could be a drop box or two in my county. Donald Trump said 5,000 people, 5,000 dead people voted in Georgia. They found two. We have 40 plus states that right now are trying to overturn our voting rights, and Lindsey Graham stands up and says this is making way for ballot harvesting. You should only have mail-in votes uh, through excuse me, under the very direst of circumstances, and you must be able to prove why you need a mail-in ballot. Soldiers have been voting since the Civil War. The absentee ballot in Florida actually swung the election. And now, because you have lost the vote, there's something wrong with the vote. Um, as I said, we want to get more people from Minneapolis involved. Minneapolis, St. Paul. I'm sorry for things didn't quite turn out. We weren't able to get both our guests in tonight from Minneapolis, St. Paul, but I promise we will get them on next week. And you can always catch me on Saturdays. I will be on the podcast out of Minneapolis, St. Paul, as I follow this trial very closely. Um, I'm sure. Let's see. No, okay. Yes, Miss Balmier said that she will definitely be here. So once again, I want to talk about some of the things that are happening here in California. I know, for most of you people back east, this is, out here with the land of the cuckoos and the ultra liberals, but we do have some things going on out here. They're trying to recall Governor Newsom for his handling of the pandemic. Um, we should actually, we are on, uh, we're far ahead of the target, I should say, after being behind for quite some time. We are now kind of ahead of the curve as far as the pandemic is concerned. We are getting shots in arms. More of my neighbors will be able are getting shots. As a matter of fact, we did go through a slight period where they weren't quite available for everyone, but so far as I know, right now, everyone within my age group, meaning senior citizens 65 years and older, we do have access to the vaccine, the Pfizer and uh, uh, Mr. Williams will also be on. I think we will talk a little bit about the opening statements of the George Floyd trial also. But excuse me. Oh yes, we were talking about the recall of Governor Newsom. Uh, Kids going back to school. Um, Although it hasn't been out here as of yet, we don't have any studies to that effect. But we have seen some states. I believe Michigan is one, and some other states back east. Uh, where they have found COVID in children between the ages of 12 and 16. We do, I believe, the um, Pfizer has been approved for kids over the age of 16. I don't know if we have anything under the age of 16, but they have talked about the possible immunization of children under the age of 16. And they've also talked about the effect of the vaccine on pregnant mothers. I think we talked about that in an earlier show. Um, HR 1 um, seems to be a bill that the Republicans do not want to pass. They don't want federal regulation of voting, which they still want to claim to be states' rights. But when you have uh, the leaders of the Republican Party calling certain states, asking them to find an exact number of votes, you have to think that there has to be uh, a little more um, regulation across the board. It I guess as I said, there was some time between when I guess 1990 and 2010 when I kind of took my vote for granted. And now to see it be in such jeopardy, it's, I can't say it's deja vu. Well, maybe I can't. Well, considering that I believe, let's see, George Wallace ran for president. He stormed uh, through Ohio, and I believe they shot him at the airport. But that was the last time I really thought that the black vote was under attack. Um, which I guess goes to prove my naivete because I thought these were things that were over and done with, things that that these are battles that I really thought that we had already went through here, and I was very disappointed. I do see Mr. Scott is here. Good evening, Mr. Scott. How are you doing this evening?
Hey, pretty good yourself, Mr. King.
I'm doing fine. I had Don on for a moment there, but he had the boys, and we know
Oh
how
yeah,
boys will be boys. So
oh
he had to.
yeah,
But
oh yeah.
I see there are a few things happening in your city. Can you tell us what's going on after the opening statements this morning? Are there
Oh man,
protests?
Yeah, the protest is going nonstop, man. I mean, Mr. Sharpton's here. The gentleman Jonathan, that was on the show Saturday. The protests are going, and really, I mean, once they showed that video right away, everything looked very, very clear as to what happened. When they really showed that video and they put the first attorney, Mr. Blackwell, I mean, he just laid it out. He laid it out. I mean, they came out swinging. They came out swinging. So this is really looking like, but like I'm telling people, you can't let the pressure off. You
Well,
can't think it. You can't think it's done. And what the 911 operator had to say, her testimony was so clear. That she had video of this and she's watching it.
yes,
And the
yes.
officer, she thought the thing had froze up because they stood on the neck so long. She said, "This just doesn't." So she asked her supervisor, which is what you're supposed to do. And then she saw, and they asked her, had she ever seen anything like that? She said, "No, I've never seen anything like that." So it's just getting started, but it's on. It's on now.
Well, having been on the other side, the Chauvin side, uh, I've put a couple lawyers' kids through college, and so I know kind of what they're about. First, they want that money, and then they're going to provide that the best defense that money can buy. So this is what I expect. But I thought that the defense attorney, this was before the actual testimony. I'm just talking about opening arguments. I thought that the defense attorney put so much, and this is all you need, reasonable doubt, that I almost couldn't believe my lying eyes. I mean, going back, I believe every other word was fentanyl laced with PCP, or it was his heart. I believe they called it a heart arrhythmia at one time.
Yeah.
All of these are terms that the average layman has no idea what they mean by this.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that automatically they threw in a curveball, but it was a curveball that you could see. You knew it was coming. You knew what it was, but yet and still you couldn't hit it. And it kind of went back to those opening speeches because as much as I know it's a very derogatory term to me, but it's one that I have to use. When I saw the pre-trial, when they were all out there with like you mentioned, Al Sharpton and all the other
Family
dignitaries,
members.
right? But instead of looking like a family, and I mean a black family, and I don't mean that they all had to be related, but I mean a family united toward a common goal. It looked more like a bunch of Negroes that were out there trying to take credit, for defending this man's life. What did you see?
Yeah, I thought that was kind of unusual to show that pre-text. I mean, I don't think that was a. I mean, it could be like you're saying and how you saw it. That can be flipping the script by that. I mean, that we needed to get right down to the court. That's why we were there. That part of it was just. I didn't think that was helpful at that particular time. I did not think that was helpful. So that's how I pretty much saw it too. I thought that it was somewhat some grandstanding. Of course, people are upset, people are up, but now we're here at the trial, and now it's time to get to work and tell what happened. And it's that the trial is for Chauvin. It's not on Floyd. This is not about that. This is about the officer and what the officer did. And if you want to get in the background, get in the officer's background. So I'm assuming that that's going to be coming.
Yes,
that's going to be coming.
Good evening, Dahlia. How are you doing? I believe you're on mute. If you could unmute yourself here. Can we hear you? Dahlia, are you?
Hey.
How you doing?
Okay, I can hear.
That's Mr. Anthony Scott up there in the corner. Mr. Scott is from the Twin Cities, and I did a program with them Saturday. They kindly invited me on their podcast, so I'm kind of returning the favor.
Yeah.
And we were talking about the opening statements this morning. I'm not sure whether or not you were able to watch them live, but I'm sure at some point in time you've at least seen snippets of it. What did you think? Did you think that my analysis of a bunch of old Negroes standing around trying to take credit for George Floyd's death, rather than the arrest of Officer Chauvin? Do you think I was too critical?
I haven't had a chance to watch it. I've been listening I listen a little bit on Sirius XM Urban View. I listen to a lot of the talk show hosts there, and Joe Madison was talking about it a little bit, but I haven't had a chance to watch it myself. But there's something you said that's interesting. That I agree. This is a trial for the perpetrator, right? So the focus should be on what we need to do to make sure that the facts of this case is clearly represented. We millions of Americans saw this happening, on the screen when it was televised. So there's not much more to say about that as far as I'm concerned. But
well, yeah, it's almost like there's this undercurrent where they're trying to see that this officer is treated fairly. Mm-hmm. It's like there's this whole undercurrent where all of these things that they're doing is just trying to be fair to this man in light of what he did. That's the part that they seem to just kind of skirt over that and go to the fact, well, he's that it's about more of trying to see that he gets treated fairly in this process. And when I look at that, I mean, I've been in a number of court situations. I was a supervisor at the Hennepin County Child Protection. As a matter of fact, I live 5-6 blocks from 38th in Chicago. Okay. And I've lived around this area pretty much my whole life, within a mile of that area. I have been in that courtroom that Hennepin County. I worked down there for 20 plus years. I know these people down there, and I've seen several trials. But this one, this emphasis seems to be on fairness for this murderer is really something that I think it's good for the country to see this. I think it's good for them to shine a light on this whole procedure. And hopefully, the bottom line is we'll learn something about it. And I hope that, I pray that we get justice out of it, because I saw what happened to our city when that happened.
I know that, the proven, innocent until proven guilty, etc. Of course, there's there's different rules for different people, as we know in this country. There's the, white privilege and white supremacy is all about this. For white people, it is innocent until proven guilty, right? There's this benefit of the doubt. Like you said, they're trying to give him the Fairness Act, right? when it comes to Black and brown people, in particular Black people, yeah, not so much. And it's very clear what he did. There is no, I'm just holding my breath right now. There is no justification, none whatsoever, for that ignorant and clearly blatant act of murdering someone that he participated in.
Yeah,
And that's
well, and also the act of, you have 4 officers there, and it's like the Black man is such a brute, has such brute strength, and you have 4 officers subduing this man. I mean, it just really that whole picture. I mean, it shines a light. It shines a big light on how some of these things are handled, especially when it comes to Black people in particular and people of color.
absolutely. I mean, the police officers, they mishandle, and that's a nice word I'm using, our children, teenagers, women, men, elderly. There is never this nice fairness applied. But yet here we are. And like I said, I haven't looked to see, but it does, I wouldn't be surprised that that's exactly what's happening, that we have to, we have to do the due process and all of this other stuff that is not the same across the board. If it was the same, if all things were equal, then we would be behaving we would be having a different conversation. But it's very clear in this country, all things are not equal by the treatment of people, depending on the color of their skin.
Dama, Anthony and Mr. Allen asked me this question Saturday. What do you think will happen if this officer is found innocent?
I don't know. Revolution comes to mind.
Well, it does, because
we don't have enough guns. I can tell you now, military trained. We don't have enough guns.
We don't have enough. I know. This revolution.
So that part we can't even accomplish an educational revolution, let alone an armed revolution. So we can kind of forget that. But I do see some burnings.
Mm-hmm.
I do, and I know we'll see what happens here in the Twin Cities. But this is a nationwide, worldwide event.
Global.
I mean, when I watch TV late at night, these are people in Europe. These are people across the pond. They are watching this because, see, America is on trial. America has continued to present itself as this democracy, that we are the greatest country in the world, that we will see. Now people are watching this, and they're seeing the chinks in the armor, so to speak. They're seeing that what happens if this man walks, if for some reason he walks or even just gets a slap on the wrist. I guess I can't say I have to side with Mr. King on full scale revolution. We really don't have the mechanism to do that. But as we see things in Atlanta, where they have started to take away people's votes, where you can't stand in line to vote, and if you give somebody a drink of water, it's a felony. They're doing everything to take away the things that we've already fought for years and generations, to get these laws and things on the books, but yet they continue to come up with ways to turn them back. And since we had the last president, this has really fueled, I think, the flames. I mean, we see him storm the Capitol.
Yeah, I'm still trying to
figure out. We have had 4 situations where we've had Black men come to marches in the city of Washington, millions, and you didn't see any violence. You didn't see any, like these fools that ran up in there and they killed people, and they're still soft pedaling this. Things that we actually see that they soft pedal.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. And I'm still trying to figure out, how is it that our government, our federal government, can tolerate states that are trying to disenfranchise voters? That's such a huge disconnect for me. We are the United States of America. That means at some point we decided that we were going to collectively it's like an umbrella, right? There's certain things I think that the federal government should take more of a stronger stance on. And this is one of them. This is blatant racism. Jim Crow number 3.0. I mean, you call it what you want to call it.
But
I mean,
but
then
but,
what?
but if you remember when we became those United States that you referred to, we were only 3/5 human.
That's true, but we're no longer. I mean, but yes, I realize that.
So
If you let them
we-
down, if you let them down.
You know, but I mean, this is like, what if the state of Georgia all of a sudden signs some law doing something against children or the elderly? I mean, or God forbid, an animal, pet. I mean, the PETA people will be all over the place. But I'm just saying, you know what I'm saying?
You do know that you do know that Michael Vick played for the Atlanta Falcons, right? So when you want us to start talking about, who do they care more about, pets or black people? I'm just saying,
That's rhetorical. It's a rhetorical comment. I'm just saying, at what point, like, what does it take for the federal government to say, you know what, Georgia, that's not happening. That's against, you know what I mean? You can't do that. Like, that's what I'm looking. Yeah. That's the answer I'm looking for right now.
So you think that we're going to have troops march, black kids into the University of Mississippi and University of Arkansas all over again, because this is the point where we're at. We're asking for votes. We're asking for the right to vote. Something that we were supposed to. I mean, I thought this was over in 1968. Okay.
You know what? Honestly, and maybe I'm a little bit too militant, but I say drain the swamps. I say all black people leave those states behind. They're already poor as they are. Remove your purchasing power, whatever little it is. Find another state to live in and let them just go to waste. Let the Mississippis and the Alabamas. Maybe
that's one thing. That's one thing that we can do. I mean, that they've talked about. Yeah, in Georgia, not supporting Delta Airlines, supporting Coca-Cola, not buying cigarettes, not buying. Right.
None of
these are things that seem to get their attention.
Use our money. Money talks. This is the one thing. This is America. We keep forgetting we are one of the greatest countries because of the cha-ching. If we take our money and put it, stop supporting all of these organizations and companies who are on the back end slipping little dollars under the table to these racist activities. I live in California, so. And I grew up
from a historical standpoint. I mean, the reality is that's why a civil war was fought. Okay, to make this one country. That was really what, slavery was the big issue, obviously, but to make this one country. So this was fought. And then they agreed to certain things right after the war. I mean, black people were politicians, black people were prosperous, but it seems that every time we start getting a leg up on things, then that's when they have to burn down the Wall Streets.
That's right.
They have to go to these things and tear that down. They have to do anything where we're starting to be prosperous as a group. A group. This is something that they come to us as a group of successful people and work together on. So that's that has to be resolved.
I agree with you. There's this great book called White Rage by Carol Anderson, and that's exactly what the book is about. It takes you through Reconstruction, Brown versus Board, Civil War, and all the way through up to Obama administration. At every point of Black advancement has been met with white rage consistently. We're experiencing it right now. Because of the 2020 election, you see the white rage is force. Republican Party, like, again, you got the black vote came out. They trying to, they shifted Georgia, and what happened? Now you're trying to rescind the vote.
I want to both of you can address this, because I see something that I mean, once again, I'm an old man, so it's kind of rinse and repeat. But I see us trying to legislate hate. just like we tried to legislate it. Like I said, when you talk of Medgar Evers, you talk of the integration of colleges, and a word that I keep seeing over and over and over, and it really irks me. It's the word inclusion. Uh, to me, inclusion is no more than integration, like you said. Integration 1.5 or whatever. But I'm not trying to be included. I still want to be me. I want to be a part of. I want to be recognized. Now that doesn't mean that you have to invite me over for Sunday dinner, but maybe you can tell me what you're serving. At least give me the right to say. At least give me the right to say no. So, are
Yeah.
we putting too much of our time and energy into trying to legislate hate rather than using education and information? Oh God, I mean that's even called fake news now. But I mean, have we gotten away from the basic principles of communication with each other?
Well,
Well, I
look,
mean,
I agree with you in the inclusion because it seems like they come up with different buzzwords. First, it's integration. Okay, so now it's inclusion, like it's something new. Like this is a new thing. Now we're going to be inclusive. We're going to have it's the same old thing. They're still not allowing the black person to be able to do the things that they want to do in their lives. Just like when I grew up, you would see people like the Orville Faubus, the governor of Arkansas, stand in front of the school and say they are not coming in this school. And say he's going to call the National Guard so the black people can't go to that school. And they actually had to call the National Guard to turn that around. So these things of inclusion, diversity, these things to me become just buzzwords for the same thing to make you think that they're actually doing something for you, that this is something new now. Okay, so now we're inclusive, now we're diverse, so that it's something new, but it's really not. It's really not until you're able to accept people, until you're able to have and open up these countries, these schools, these opportunities, um, so that you can have black success. I mean, look who's head of the Fortune 500 companies. How many black people are head of a Fortune 500 company in this country? Is there
yeah,
one or two, maybe?
maybe three or four. But I mean, I agree with you, Anthony. And the thing is, when I think about it, I mean, yes, it's all the same. I mean, it just, we repackage concepts, right, into new names, whatever, that's fine. For me, it's like, just get out of my way. It's about access and opportunity. Get out of my way. Do not get in my way because I'm trying to achieve something. I'm trying to I'm trying to have a life that is meaningful for me. Stop trying to degrade me or demonize me because of the color of my skin. I don't really care if you like me or not. I want to take care of myself and my family, and I don't want anybody in my way. I want to get education if I want to. I want to work if I want to. So I think for me, it's just getting out of inclusion. To me means get out of my way and don't get in my way of access and opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And we're good. And I'm tired of this country always like coming up with excuses and things of why it can't be that way. There's no, I just don't see it. There's not enough excuses for me. Or justification. People, you know what? And there's people who are just racist and they don't like black people and they don't think black people are worth anything. You know what? If you're that person, you need to get out of my way too, because you're not going to be around
Yeah,
me. But that's
yeah,
just, what I mean? That inner, what's going on in here that you have to have that feeling. That takes a lot of energy, don't you think? To just hate somebody.
it does. And the only, I've thought about this many times. I mean, this isn't new, but it seems as though the whites are threatened somehow by black people. Seems that somehow they have this fear or this threat, and I don't know if it's their conscience because of the way they have treated us over the centuries since we've been in this country, but there seems to be this overall fear or fear of Black people. I mean, from the times of, I did another study here in the Twin Cities on this concept called redlining. And what
Yep.
that was and that was going on in every city. You can only live as a Black person in certain
Right.
areas. You can only live in certain areas. And so we would settle in those areas. And then so we would start stores, we would have churches, we would have businesses in those areas. But then all of a sudden, those areas get taken away. All of a sudden, they don't get an opportunity to grow and prosper as other areas. They want to move out of those areas. See, the tax base moves out, and then you have in our major cities, it's the same thing. The Chicago's, the Detroit's, the LA. You can go to every area and see where they have abandoned and have what they'll call a ghetto type area. And it's just because they, for some reason, are afraid of us. At least it appears to me, and threatened somehow by us.
Yes, I do wholeheartedly agree. Dahlia, do you want to make any comments about the recall of Governor Newsom? How do you think? What did you see that as? I thought that was another. Actually, I thought he did a good job as far as keeping us safe and protected. What did you think as a parent?
No, I agree. I think Governor Newsom has done a good job in trying to figure this out. I think it's the people of California. Some of us are just like, they just need to stay home or like follow rules. It's just too much ocean. You know, I get it. We live in a beautiful paradise, be at the beach or whatever. But you know what? This is a short amount of time. This is a short period of time in a lifetime. Get over yourselves and just follow the rules and do what we're supposed to be doing, because that is keeping us safe. And that's what's really important, is keeping us safe and healthy. You know, eventually everybody getting vaccinated, and then, you know, hopefully back to somewhat a new normal, because I don't like going back. I always like going forward, right? Something even better than how it was before. So I think he's doing a good job.
Mr. Scott, I will definitely be on with you gentlemen Saturday morning. I look forward to talking with you. Why don't you give us your final thoughts? Let us know what's going on in Minneapolis, and we thank you for your time tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Miss Dahlia. Very nice to meet you, and great to be part of your show. And I'd like to keep people informed as to things that are going on up here in the Twin Cities. Just real quickly before I go, I have a nonprofit where we have put out books. My father did books on the Twin Cities area, and this is our new book, Minnesota's Black Community in the 21st Century, where we just got an award from the National Human Resource Development Group. And what our books do is to highlight the achievements that the Black community is doing. So it's my pleasure to be part of the show, and I look forward to talking with you, James, on Saturday.
All right, so you have a great day, and I will talk to you Saturday morning.
Sounds good.
Bye.
Dahlia, you have to give me your final thoughts for the evening, and make sure you tell everybody where they can find you.
Well, you know what? I really enjoyed this three-way conversation.
I thought he was coming
cool. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this three-way conversation between you, myself, and Anthony. I really like that. And let's just keep this conversation going. You know, as you know, I do, speaking of inclusion, I am a consultant and coach. And so, but I don't waste my time with anything related to checking boxes or just doing things. If we're not ready, if you're not an organization or a person that's not ready to really have some deeper level dialogue about what's really happening, and then that's not a client that I'll be taking on. But you can find me. My website is balmerinclusive.com.
All right, you have a very good night, and I look forward to having you back on again. And as I said, I will see you Saturday, Mr. Scott.
All
All
right,
right, take
bye.
care.
You have a great night. As always, we dedicate our last half hour to the San Diego Black Panther Party, and we have Brother Williams is on tonight, as well as Brother Karan. So, brother, I was just talking to the gentleman from the Minneapolis, St. Paul area, and we're going to have them on the show every week until the trial is over. So I turn the program over to you.
Yeah, I think that's very, very important that we all follow and watch this because I mean, just obviously, and I apologize I wasn't on, able to listen more, on the podcast, but this is a serious situation that we're facing, and so we want to keep our eyes on this one. And I honestly feel like no matter which way it turns, you're going to have potentials for riots that's gonna take place. Um, I mean, because those people that basically disguise themselves as Trumpers with being the neo Nazis and the way things have escalated with that in terms of law enforcement and the military finally considering them to be a threat, as well as the backlash that we're going to see as a result of that. I think all of this is going to come into play. So it to me it could be it's very much a potential powder keg that we're dealing with and we're about to face, and that coinciding with the new fourth wave that we're dealing with. There's a lot of air, a lot of wind. Uh, that coinciding with the fourth wave of COVID that's taking place. I think we're really in for it. But I want to go ahead and turn it over to
43.
hey James, your mic is not muted. Okay, there you go. I do want to go ahead and turn it over to Brother Karan to talk a little bit about a recruitment drive we got going on this Saturday.
All power to the people, brother.
Power to the people.
So we have a recruitment drive for the San Diego Black Panther Party. I'm Brother Karan, Chief of Staff of the San Diego Black Panther Party. And we are having a drive on this Saturday. So, if you're able-bodied, if you're out here oriented, in the community and practice self-determination for, all the righteous peoples and oppressed peoples of color, then come out and learn what we had to offer to the people and get to know some more. So we're meeting at Encanto Park, next to the Boys and Girls Club, on Imperial and 68. And there's plenty of parking all around. So specifically, we're looking for community organizers to build our community mechanism. And what that means is, getting out in the streets and supporting the community. Simple as that. And we're also looking for people to fill our information mechanism as far as getting the right knowledge and education out to the streets to self-determined peoples and pushing the party line to where we can raise a political consciousness of the people, because that's the sole job of the revolutionary. So come out, ask questions. We're gonna have some information for you, and then we're gonna go into like a brief overview of the San Diego Black Panther Party, our history, and we got a lot of knowledge to fill out, and also prerequisites on top of that, just to kind of get your wheels turning, get your head spinning on the right kind of knowledge that we're trying to put down before you even hop in the ranks. So, look forward to seeing you there. We appreciate you. All power to the people.
All right. With that being stated, I did want to just kind of go into a little bit of what that means when we say the word mechanism, because the Black Panther Party here in San Diego, we operate what we refer to as a cell body as it applies to the different aspects of how we address community empowerment. The different structures and mechanisms we operate from which is the first infrastructure mechanism, the defense mechanism, community mechanism, information mechanism, identity mechanism, and engineering mechanism. And basically what that means is when you pull all of these mechanisms together, you have the totality of an organization or an organ. So basically it's our way of saying that when all of these things work together, then we are able to have a holistic approach to empowering and building a community. So from that standpoint, our emphasis that we want to place this weekend, this go around with the recruitment again is the community mechanism and the information mechanism. And certain things that we will be covering with the community, like going into the aspects of what we refer to as the myths of the Black Panther Party. When we talk about the myths of the Black Panther Party, it goes a lot into the fact that the Black Panther Party was established first and foremost, Laos County, Alabama, and that drawing a distinction between the Black Panther Party and the Black Panther Party for self-defense, so that the people recognize the different formats and operations of what it meant to be in the Black Panther Party, as well as how that applies to today's generation. Because we have, various different formations of Panthers that are out there now. You have well over a dozen different formations of Black Panthers. Whether we're talking about variations of the Black Panther Party that, that came about through the disband in the 70s, as well as on into 1989 when the new Black Panther Party was formed and its rise and rebuilding, and the new generation that collaborated with that formation, as well as the spinoffs that came about, through gun clubs like the Huey P. Newton Gun Club and Guerrilla Mainframe and other formations that attracted the youth. So what we like to address with that here back in San Diego is kind of going back to the roots of the Black Panther Party and the Black Panther Party for self-defense, and getting our people to recognize that. So when we get into our orientation drive, we'll cover a little bit of those bases and get the people being able to have the people walk away with a decent understanding of what the expectations is being within an organization like this.
That's right.
A lot of times people think that just simply willing to want to step up to the plate is enough. And that's just unfortunately really not the case. Especially if you hadn't done any community organizing, then it's not just simply having the willingness to want to jump into assisting your people. You have to literally be educated and understand what the process takes. And so as it applies to the Black Panther Party, we have a recruitment training criteria that we take the people through to see to it that you have the basics to be able to start addressing these needs as it applies to the different identities and mechanisms that we operate from.
Absolutely. And that goes into the trifecta that we preach of being ready, willing, and capable to serve the people. We promote Black power from another trifecta of define, develop, defend, which is to define what's in the best interest, to develop what's in the best interest, and to defend what's in the best interest of the people. And we facilitate all this through our 8 local objectives, which is to develop Black power through education, develop and defend Black economic power, to develop and defend Black political power, to develop and enforce accountability in law enforcement and the criminal justice system, to develop and defend Black youth, to reclaim and develop Black neighborhoods, to defend Black rights in general, and we demand local reparations and compensation. By any means necessary. All power to the people.
Sweet. And again, that's going to be at Encanto Park, which is 6711 Imperial Avenue, this Saturday from 10 to 12 p.m. So we do ask that people that are interested do their best to get there on time, so that you can get the most of the orientation and what we have in store for the community. I do want to give recognition to a few other groups as much as possible as it applies to working within the community. Whether we talk about the Racial Justice Coalition, People Over Profit, the Brown Berets, and Pillars of the Community. To me, those organizations there and those grassroots movements have always been on the front line in addressing the social, political, and economic needs of the disfranchised here in San Diego and even San Diego County. So the Black Panther Party works in conjunction with them, and we, are all coinciding, working together to do what we can. So there's various formations and organizations out there that are doing the work here in San Diego, and we just want to do our part. And oftentimes the youth, it's about pushing the youth into activism and being empowered. And I think, coming up with this trial that we're looking at, dealing with George Floyd, is super important that people step up to the plate and not just come at this from a position of anger, but step into this from a position of love. We want our people to rise up over the conditions that we constantly find ourselves in. And in order to do that, we have to have a decent and solid foundation. Um, One of your earlier guests spoke of a book called White Rage, and I think it's super important that we are politically and astute of what we're up against. See, it's books like that that actually give you insight into historical significance that lets you know, hey, this is what was done. This is the pattern that comes as a result of that. And so we recognize in looking at these patterns and looking at this historical data that it is not easy work, and it is basically a incline in terms of getting where we need to get. And that's why I tell people all the time that, when you talk about the wave, the wave and significance of empowerment, that things seem to come in cycles. And and James King, we talked about this before, to where we'll build up as a people, and then next thing you know, things seem to fall off, and then here we go having to
Absolutely.
rebuild and go back. So we keep having this back and forth slide, and we have to do better as a people to address these crests, these rise and falls. Because bottom line is, when you are dealing with a position of needing to empower yourself, needing to fight oppression, it has to be a constant, steady, overgrowing response. It's in order to do that, it cannot be emotional. That's the problem. When we attack things from an emotional perspective, then oftentimes once our emotion is done and over with, and we had a chance to vent, we had a chance to feel like we've done a little bit of our part, then we feel like we can sit back and let somebody else do their part. And that's when the gap comes in.
Total
And
complacency.
yes, and so we can't be that. We can't operate from that standpoint, because all we doing at that point is we keep covering a little ground and then going backwards, covering the same ground again and going backwards.
That's right,
And it,
and that's going into addressing the symptoms versus the you know the real solutions. We get hit symptoms over the head all day and put band-aids on things, and sometimes you have to address the symptoms, before the problem. We're dealing with civil rights versus human rights, and when we're dealing with a class struggle versus a people struggle, we're dealing with 368 years of chattel slavery. So these things are compounded. We're not just solely dealing with a class struggle as melanated people. We're dealing with self-determination on our end, so that we can elevate our consciousness and decolonialize our thoughts and our practices. And that, as the brother was talking about earlier, it does look like strikeouts, and does look like organizing in a manner where you take your leverage, and take the tools that you got and you work for, take that education. We push education, because the fact that we weren't allowed to read at some point, so all that must be taken into account, moving forward.
Brother Williams, do we really have an economic clout, or is this a mirage? And the
well,
reason why I ask that is because when you look at the current situation in Georgia, and you have major companies, Delta Airlines, Coca-Cola, and we threaten to boycott those particular companies. But those companies also, they supply jobs to some of the people in our community. So, do we have the economic clout to really boycott. I mean, it's not the 50s and the 60s where you have one store in town, or most of our neighborhoods are economic deserts.
We absolutely had the power. We had the power 100%. I can't speak for Brother War on that, but I feel
Go ahead,
like
Karan.
as a people, we do have the power. We just hadn't tapped into it, and in the times we do tap into it, it looks like a media riot, or it looks like something that the people can put handle on, to make it good for a headline. But yeah, we have all kinds of power. We have economic power. That's why, and playing it, going and playing their game. We're subjected to a capitalist system that we have to play in. We're given a box to play in. So where we're at fault in that is feeding into the notion that we can perpetuate this capitalistic system, work inside of that, and everything will be fine and dandy because I got my hand down my piece of the pie, and that's not the case. We need a whole new situation. We need to get on the same page of self-determination to define the Black nation. Um, and that looks like
Let me
a proletariat. Go for it, brother. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
No, I was just going to basically say the beast and the monster of capitalism has not changed in terms of its foundation from when we talk about the civil rights era to what we call the current era. It is still operating from the same position. Now, me being a person in technology, what I can say to you is that as a result of manufacturing and the way that the big companies have orchestrated their production output, they do so in such a way to where it takes less manpower, as well as there is a greater buildup of stock and inventory so that they can kind of sort of try to be able to deal with these uh, aspects of certain waves in terms of boycott. And all that just has to do with basically, building a shelf life, so to speak, of capitalism to be able to deal with any type of I would say back issues that happen that cause a stagnant in their production. But with that being said, again, talking about the economic power we have as a people, when we talk about these things, if we really approach boycotts from a unified position, it will stifle the ability for them to be able to address it in such a way to where they would not have to meet our demands. It's just getting us to realize that. And so that's why the big push in the United States is on individualism. When you have a push on individualism, it is awfully hard for us to come together on things that take, I would say, momentum of work other than protests. Because keep in mind, when you talk about protests that's going out, that's hearing a few people that are leading the protests, even if you being consistent with the protests, you still are in this state of just, you know, uh, outcry. But to actually have boycotts, it takes a whole lot more organizing because you have to now deal with what we call accountable spending. And accountable spending means that you have to be disciplined enough to not spend your money on the things that we have grown to comfort ourselves with in the first place. And
That's
so
right. That's
we
right.
have to raise our consciousness as a people and recognize that power. And in doing so, we can hit them from all sides. But that does take a concentrated effort. And in addressing it from an economic standpoint, if we approach situations as community and as a people versus as individuals, then we would really see the power that we have. Keep in mind that COINTELPRO and the agenda to continue to keep the black people, the black population, and quote unquote minorities at each other's throats, at each other's arms, and in position of polarity was why Donald Trump was so effective in being able to do the things he was able to do in the first place. So we have to understand how polarization works. It
Absolutely.
helps people to further divide themselves, which leads those few people that are in power in fascism, it leads them in a better position because
Right.
now it's hard for us to unify around anything, whether we're talking about race or economic issues. So when you throw all that in the mix, then it makes it that much harder for us to even realize that if we want to tackle situations, then we have to be able to have boycott as one of the prominent tools in the toolbox that we continue to use, and
Absolutely.
get out of this mode of just dealing with protests.
And
So James,
we don't have the luxury of linear thinking when it comes to the
right,
struggle. We don't have the luxury of having this proletariat European, we're just gonna throw the government and that'll be a solution to all our problems. Nah, we don't have that luxury. We have to deal with
No.
so many different things on so many different levels. And so, you know, the definition stage is a bit harder for us. And you know, every time we have someone, you know, pushing the needle forward, that our boys like to take them out. So just recognizing that and really being able to critically think, you know, on a street level, you know, for the people, for our people, especially, you know, the melanated pupils. We need to critically think and do what we can, but not even do what we can, but do what we never did before. I always say you have to do what you never done and get what you never been. So, you know, you can keep trying to dance circles like they've been doing for the past 400 years and trying to figure out our place in this, or you know, we can take control over our own situation, which is the only answer, and see what they got for us.
Brother Williams, how do we show um, valid results? And by valid results, I find myself, and I've said this ever since we've met, I find myself fighting the same battles that I fought in my youth when I was probably Brother Quran's age. And I don't know whether it was because I lost sight of my goal. I got too caught up in my own uh, creativity of wealth, or whether I got too comfortable thinking that we overcame already. But how do we? I mean, it's evident we're still trying to pass HR 1, so it's evident that at some period we have lost control, or the control that we thought that we had was
Right.
just
That's
a
exactly it.
mirage.
Yep, it's an illusion of control, and that's what they're gonna tell you. That's what they're gonna tell you day in and day out. That illusion of control, that you have control, you know, through our means, and that's why more of the, you know, more radical struggles involve, you know, taking back the means of production, and taking certain things. Now, I'm not saying, you know, bringing violence to the streets, because it's to be understood we never brought the violence. We only brought ourselves, and we brought our mothers, our brothers, our sisters, but we have been met with violence time and time again. So to be prepared for that is a totally different thing than the self-determination aspect. And we have to recognize our power and actively act on that and ask ourselves, what are we doing? Are we uh, creating this neo-colonial thing? Are we perpetuating black capitalism? Are we getting our piece of the pie? Are we rejecting the pie completely because it's foul and I don't want a piece of it? So these are the questions we need to ask ourselves day in and day out as a people, because it's going to take it's going to take our people for self-determination, keyword self, but it's going to take all the people to get where we need to be.
and I would say with what Quran is getting at on that note, and kind of to address further what you was asking, to me it goes into what we refer to as passing the baton, because as we deal with the various generations of activism, the problem is there's oftentimes not a proper or a rites of passage, as you have new people or younger people being birthed into the movement, being handed off the actual work in the actual I would say seasoned uh historical output that has taken place by the previous generation. So oftentimes what we have is whatever work and whatever foundation that was built upon by a previous generation was not recognized or not appreciated by the next upcoming generation. And so a lot of the stuff starts working its way back. And mind you, we're dealing with a structure a capitalistic structure that works day in and day out to dismantle the fruits and our levels of progression. So kind of like I was saying earlier, we cannot have pauses and stoppages in our movement to move forward and our progression to go forward. This is why, like an organization like the All African People's Revolutionary Party would say, forward forever, backwards never. They say that because what they're talking about is they're talking about that consistent push forward in a direction and the passing off of the proper information, the proper seasoned work, and the proper ethics, and all of the knowledge that the previous generations learned from, as well as learning from the mistakes and learning from the victories. So we refer to that in the Black Panther Party in regards to individual missions as going into what we call briefings and debriefings. When we do that, then we also deal with the element of project management, which goes into lessons learned when you deal with your deliverables. So as we address these things, everything needs to work. And like Karan was talking about earlier, needs to have a level of dealing with compounded efforts. Because if we don't do that, what happens is we take a break, we take a pause, and the next generation comes in, and what they're doing is basically acting like somebody that has to dig for artifacts. So
Absolutely. And
they're
also, what you have is a bunch of dead brothers in the streets.
yep.
On top of that, the artifacts is one thing, and reinventing the wheel is one thing. But what you have at the end of the day is a bunch of dead brothers and sisters in the streets. That's what they tried to do in the '60s, but it wasn't a '60s struggle. It was a struggle since we got here. And what you have was a bunch of dead brothers and sisters in the streets because they had to do the strong arming. They had to do the work, for someone to pay attention. And so now we in the social media age, we in the YouTube age, everybody got to pay attention. They got to watch. And so, to bring it full circle, my generation and my age, coming in the wake of George Floyd and all these things, if the Black Panther Party was allowed to go on from the '60s, we would have had this 50 years ago. So I feel like it's my job to stop the slumber. Wake up, my people. Right now is the time. Seize the means.
And that's also called generational advancement. That's what we refer to that as generational advancement. And that's what the party seeks to do, is to address the movement from all generations working cohesively together, the young, the middle age, and the old. And we refer to as our elders, not the old, but the elders. Go ahead, James. You got another question?
No, I just wanted to speak a little bit when you talked about elders, because once again it goes back to our history, and I think it's something that we have gotten away from. The elders, was someone that you came to for counsel. They told you the history of your tribe, and they guided the younger members, and even whoever happened to be chief, or whoever was ahead of the tribe. And I think now we've lost that respect for our elders, and we look upon them as competitors rather than historians. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree with you. It's looked upon that way again to me because we don't address things from the standpoint of, like I said, generational advancement. Because there needs to be a proper way of ushering in each generation into the movement. Because it's like when you think about running a marathon race, but yet you have a lot of sprinters on the field, because the youth wants to jump right in and run fast and run fast. And oftentimes that's because they don't recognize that they're in a marathon. So if they don't recognize that they're in a marathon, meaning that they have to have endurance, meaning that they have to realize that you have to set a pace. Setting a pace basically means that I have to have myself in a preparation mode to where I know that this is not going to be completed with just me, that there will be a handoff. Something will be handed off to me, and I need to nourish this and take it as far as I can go, and hand off my information, hand off my wealth of knowledge, hand off my wisdom to the next generation as I continue to prep and do my part for whatever my status is at that point in time. So that type of rites of passage is does not exist within our environment right now. And unfortunately, again, like I say, when people decide to jump into community activism, they just reach out to the closest thing they can find, and the closest thing a lot of times that they can find will be protest geared movements.
Yeah, and also a lot of things that they can find and reach out and touch has been planted there, has been put there to keep them mentally in a certain place where they've been for the last 50 years. They're going to put these folks in place. They're going to put the pastors in place. They're going to put these people out here to tell you what you should be doing, should be thinking outside of full-on revolution and self-determination thought and Pan-Africanism and African-centered thought. And that goes into getting back to our roots, our culture, who you really are, who you are when you wake up as an African in this new land. Getting back to your elders or getting back to these certain things that we had right the whole time. You can't tell us these folks invented math or any of these things, right? So we had these things in place for a very long time, and the only way through it is reconnecting to who we really are as a people, the kings and queens we are, and we all weren't kings and queens. Even that being said, so you got these righteous folks walking around passing the wrong message, being kings and queens under the guise of capitalism, walking around with their clanky chains on, not helping the soul move forward. So it's a battle for the youth to take on, and that's one of the reasons I even joined the Panther Party is to actually be able to shut up and put my ignorance on the shelf and listen to a brother that had a little bit more knowledge, a little bit more skill, even the sister too. Whoever, the elders, to consult with them and approach not activism. Activism is baby steps to me. That's on the path to revolution. But to approach, to come from a humble stance and really pick down the pieces that were put down so I could keep the continuity Brother Ward was talking about going forward.
Yeah, I'm glad to see young brothers like yourself and some of the others that we've had on the show from the party that are willing to pick up, that struggle and move forward with it. As I told Brother Williams, I was very surprised to hear about the Black Panther Party here in San Diego. I've been here since 2003, and it's just become a movement that's I knew was active within the last couple of years. I think that we need to be a little more active in our neighborhoods,
Absolutely.
rather than take a back seat to some of the more popular movements. And and I'm referring to Black Lives Matter, the NAACP, the Urban League, any of those organizations that came along during my time and that have remained stagnant, as you said, young brother, through the last 50 years.
Yeah, and on that, people hit me about that all the time. What do you think about the NAACP? What do you think about this? And I take the stance of, what I'll back off from perpetuating division in the streets, to a certain extent, because some brothers had the right idea, some don't, whatever. It's not a contest. If you not on the same type of time we need to be on, I will show you, I will develop with you, and then we can grow together, brother. I know all skin folk and kin folk, but at the same time, these brothers is lost. And our whole entire thing is elevating the consciousness of the people, and then the people, in return, the people protect the revolutionary. And so you know, it's a bunch of different skins and names and all this and all that, you know, that's being so divisive, and that just feeds into capitalism, white supremacy, and individualism of the people. So, you know, not necessarily on some kumbaya, but I try to refrain from the rhetoric of, you know, pointing fingers, and more so just empowering the people to do what I do.
I understand what you're saying, and maybe it's because of my age, and I feel uh, you know almost betrayed. But when I looked at what happened this morning before the trial,
Mm.
to me it was like an assembly of old 1970 Negroes,
Mm-hmm.
begging for to be given justice, rather than saying justice is ours and this is what we deserve.
But
Uh,
yeah, I mean, that's what you're gonna get as long as you're working in this capitalistic system. Um, as long as you keep, you know, playing with the pieces they giving you, playing the game, then you're gonna get the result that they want. And I feel like, you know, I'm not necessarily a fan of like 200 years from now, or however many years from now, or I'm not even a fan of like calling that realistic stance. You know, like, you know, let's make these things happen. Um, and it's to be understood that, you know, uh, that you're not going to get a certain amount of work done in your lifetime. I don't think Brother Malcolm saw his plans come to fruition, or Brother Martin saw his plans come to fruition. I don't think Mr. Garvey saw his plans come to fruition. You know, but it's these things that we can build on it, and have to put the continuity in place for the next generation to really absorb that. And that starts with, you know, education on the lowest level of you know, the kids, and really building with them, you know, and building with the folks my age. Yeah, but we already done been through school. We already been doing the college thing. But really passing the baton, you know, past myself. You know, I have to look at myself as almost an OG, or an OG actually. You know, just for the stance of putting our people in position to carry the message forward.
Let me address a little bit more too on what you're saying, because see, I myself have been on stage with Al Sharpton somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that the hand of the oppressor recognizes the importance of putting certain people out in front of movements for the sake of getting them in position to be able to try to, what I refer to as, gatekeep the outcome, being that it potentially can gear in a situation that will bring shame on the United States.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think it's strategic that you saw the people you saw, and you saw the type of information, and like you said, James, the going back into the times of what took place. And so to me, that's strategic. It's meant to happen that way
Yep.
because they want to get in front of this and have certain people in front of this, which to me goes right back into what the oppressor attempts to do to keep the people asleep, to try to control the masses to what degree they can, as well as also keep in mind this: when you throw that type of segment out there, then it helps to justify when they come down on us a certain way as a result of people true frustration coming out, if in fact we don't see justice served. So when they try to get ahead of the curve and throw certain types of mentality and certain people in front of the movement, is to try to quail our spirit. It's to try to give us alternatives to anything short of true justice. So we
That's
we
right.
can't we can't be sidetracked by that. We can't
Can't
be
place it.
fooled. We can't be fooled by that.
Yeah, we can't even be complacent at all. You know, if I see him, you know, talking on the CNN and Fox News about something that has to do with our struggle, outside of really something that's actually our struggle, I just can't trust it. That's just you know, the law of the land. They up there for a reason. You know, puppet. They being puppet. They have puppet masters. They have owners, right? They had to keep that image. There's a certain reason you watching these folks. Um, to an extent, and all that's edited. You know, it's a not to really be all, you know, media is just, you know, white supremacy pulling the strings. It just goes to show you the need for self-determination and controlling our own media, which is what the Panthers did originally with the newspaper. It's telling the stories that need to be told on the street and telling that how it is.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Brother Williams, as always, you know, it's always been a pleasure. And why don't you and Brother Karan give us any information that you know that we might need to get to your event? Once again, I want to make sure we have emphasis on that, and any observations or that maybe considerations that you might think for this very important trial these next 4 weeks or so.
Well, as far as the trial, I just say that as a people, let's look forward to again dealing with things from the standpoint of generational advancement. Don't simply get involved in the movement because of your anger or hatred as a result of not seeking justice, but look at it from the standpoint of we need to build ourselves around the love of empowering ourselves in what we are. So this is a long-term fight. And the situation itself just should let us know just how far we need to go and just how backwards things have taken. So we have a lot of work ahead of us. So I want people to come into this movement for the long haul, not because of an emotional tied to an emotional situation of a individual aspect of injustice. But what happened to George Floyd happens all the damn time. It just so happens that we got this on camera. So we need to recognize that the conditions will not change until we actively change the condition and keep that change calibrated and at the forefront as we make new change. So in order to reach the San Diego Black Panther Party, you can hit us up on Facebook at Black Panther Party of San Diego, or we also have our own website, which is blackpantherpartysd.org. You can hit us up there. Brother Karan, I'll let you close us out if anything else you want to.
Well, yeah, that's right. That's where you can find us. And like Brother Ward was saying, we want people in it for the long haul. And that feeling that you see George Floyd getting murdered on TV, that gut-wrenching feeling, is a love. It's that revolutionary love that we're talking about. The love that you see yourself on the floor, being choked out for 10 minutes straight. And my challenge to the people is how many more does it take, for you to get on the self-determination train? How many more martyrs we got to have? How many more chattel slaves we have to have drowned in the sea? How many more does it take, brother, for you to come out in the community, and do your thing? So I'm gonna leave with that challenge to the youth and the brothers and the sisters that's my age, that's out here listening and pissed off. We can get you way further than a one-time protest. We get you way further than all of that. All you gotta do is come check us out.
Right. That's at 6711 Imperial Avenue in Canto Park this Saturday, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. All power to the people. Thank you, Brother James.
All right, brother. This is our last show for this month, so I will see you in April. And hey, as you say, all power to the people.
Thank you, sir.
Have a great night, everyone. See you next week.